Republican Governors Association, trying to elect GOP candidates this year and perhaps set the stage for a potential 2016 run for the White House. Governor Christie joins us now from Florida, where there's a tight governor's race for his first Sunday show interview of 2014. Governor, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Good morning, Chris. Good to be with you.
Governor, you just heard, and we want to talk, before we get to politics, to this whole controversy about Ebola and the quarantine. You just heard Dr. Fauci, New York City's health commissioner. Dr. Mary Bassett says, reportedly, was furious that she was not informed before the quarantine was imposed. Do you no longer trust the CDC and doctors and scientists?
Well, no, that's a pretty general statement, Chris. Of course we do. But the fact of the matter is that the CDC protocols, as Dr. Fauci admitted himself, have been a moving target. And imagine that you're the person in charge of the public health of the people of a large, densely populated state. In fact, the most densely populated state in the union, and these protocols continue to move and change. It was my conclusion that we needed to do this to protect the public health of the people of New Jersey. Governor Cuomo agreed, and now Mayor Emanuel agrees, and I think the CDC eventually will come around to our point of view on this.
And what about Dr. Fauci, who says it's just not good science to quarantine people when they're not symptomatic because they can't spread the disease in those situations?
Well, listen, I have great respect for Dr. Fauci, but what he's counting on is a voluntary system with folks who may or may not comply. We had this situation in New Jersey, Chris, as you know, with the NBC News crew that said that they were going to self-quarantine, and then 2 days later, they were out picking up takeout food in Princeton and walking around the streets of Princeton. I mean, the fact of the matter is that I don't believe, when you're dealing with something as serious as this, that we can count on a voluntary system. This is government's job. If anything else, the government's job is to protect the safety and health of our citizens. And so we've taken this action, and I absolutely have no second thoughts about it.
Well, let me just ask you about one other aspect of it. Dr. Fauci talks about the unintended consequence. Everyone agrees that the only way you're going to stop this crisis is to end Ebola in West Africa. And the concern is that the medical workers, the doctors, the nurses that are willing to take their chances and go over there, when they hear now that they're going to have to undergo a mandatory 3-week quarantine, when they come back, may decide not to go in the first place. And in fact, the first nurse who has gone through the quarantine in New Jersey says that she feels she was badly treated. So are you concerned that you're going to disincentivize people from going over there to help stop the outbreak?
No, I'm really not, Chris, because I believe that folks who want to take that step and are willing to volunteer also understand that it's in their interest and in the public health interest to have a 21-day period thereafter if they've been directly exposed to people with the virus. And as we saw with what happened with some of the healthcare workers in Texas, with the CDC shifting protocols, we had people who were infected from that type of contact. And we just can't have that in the New York, New Jersey area. And that's why Governor Cuomo and I agree on this. And now you see that they agree in Chicago as well. I think this is a policy that will become a national policy sooner rather than later.
All right, let's talk some politics. You're in Florida as head of the Republican.
Okay, that was, they were starting to, obviously today we're going to be discussing Ebola. It's hard to have any news show without talking and discussing Ebola lately, and rightfully so. We just heard that there's a 5-year-old that's being tested now for Ebola. I was surprised to hear that Emmanuel over in Chicago is doing it, especially since that announcement on the Sunday shows, essentially the White House has been putting pressure on the different governors not to follow through with this quarantine. So Cuomo, who is a Democrat, has backed off. Christie remains steadfast. I'm not sure on Emmanuel, who's good buddies with Obama. As they alluded to, Christie is in Florida for the election, which is highly contested. And I did reach out to the Republican Party in Sarasota to see if I can get Governor Scott on for an interview or Senator Rubio. Both are coming here to my town of Venice on Saturday. And I'm seeing if I can get them on my radio show, which airs on Saturday. Because, I'm one of their primary, I'm one of the people they need to change. And the fact is I'm more of a libertarian. I'm more along the lines of someone like a Wiley out there who's been ostracized and basically been limited in performing in any interviews or actively getting out there and promoting his agenda. So, what do you do in that case? Do you go with Scott, who is Republican and more along the lines of your thinking, or do you go with Christie? My thought, obviously, is no, not Christie. I'm not a fan of Christie whatsoever. So, what do you do in that case? Do you do a vote which is for Scott, which is a vote against Christie, and nothing for Wiley, or do you vote for Wiley, which in turn is a vote for Christie? That's the dilemma I face, and that's something that, I'm hoping Scott and Rubio can change my mind before the election on Tuesday. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. This is the Uncensored Report. This is Frankie Abbruzzino. This is a one-man show with the goal of educating, inspiring, and affecting change out there. It is a national, international show with a national, international audience. It is a one-man show. I do everything from the research to the setting up this program that you're watching to the website and everything. I'm doing it for free for over a year, and basically running my media operations, if you want to call it that, for the past 5 years, which have grown steadily, especially on Facebook. All right, so we're going to cover the headlines this morning. As you know, if you watch my show, I used to do it live, but I was running into some major bandwidth issues. So until I figure out how to do that, I have to record. And I basically record at 8 o'clock. I finish at 9 o'clock. I upload it. The show starts at 11. I'm sorry, I record at 9, upload it until at 10. It takes about an hour to upload until 11. The show starts at 11 to 12. It stays on the site for 24 hours until the next show. If you want to catch it all, you can just go to my YouTube channel, which there is a tab on my uncensoredreport.com to click through there. You will see some advertisements coming up. I've basically have not made anything through them, unfortunately. But one is for my sponsor, Phil's Gang, which I love putting up there. And it also gives me time to go out and set up for the next segment or the next discussion that I want to take place. So in the news out there that I haven't been able to really read into, some of the I guess it's more of the headlines, and they talk about once peaceful Canada turns militaristic. Obviously, they got to do something. They got to look internally and see what they're doing wrong, if they're doing anything wrong. It's hard to control these lone wolves, which they've had 2 lone wolf attacks. But are they doing everything that's right? Why do you have a soldier that's trained sitting at a military monument, standing guard with no bullets? That makes absolutely no sense at all. He's in the military. Give the damn guy some bullets. They just want your money. The IRS can seize your accounts under suspicion alone. That's an interesting article that I'm going to want to read. Just giving the IRS more control, more power, something that concerns me, as you know, if you watch this show on a regular basis. It says, here's an article up here, the headline, In Cold War, U.S. spy agencies used over 1,000 Nazis. Look, that's not news to you if you follow history. It's very common knowledge that after the World War II, America shipped a ton of the Nazis over here to help with our science programs, and so it's very common knowledge out there. Also with our spying, I think one of the top leaders of the Nazis headed our German spy agency over there. And finally, the CDC, they finally admitted that Ebola can go airborne. They finally admitted what everybody else has been telling you. What I've been putting on this show is that it can go airborne, especially if you're within 3 feet and somebody coughs. Guess what? That's airborne. How about Hillary Clinton? Businesses don't create jobs. I'm a business owner. We don't create jobs. It's all the government. They do all the job creating. Her and Obama taking a page from his book. Not sure if that was a good political move, especially if she plans on running for president. Where gays get blamed for Ebola. That's the headline over on the Daily Post about the Liberian presidents basically coming out and saying that they're linking the virus to homosexuality, how homophobe conservatives and liberals alike tend to blame the other when things go wrong. I have not heard that yet, and again, I have not read any of these, so it'll be interesting to see what exactly they're talking about. The Secret Life of an ISIS Warlord on the Daily Beast. I'm going to have to read that probably would be pretty interesting. WND, they cover a variety of stories with fair there. Let's see. One was D'Souza, Obama's nemesis, defies government attempts to silence him. The government's been trying everything to silence Dinesh D'Souza. So he continues out there, and he's releasing his DVD on America. Let's see. Islam, popular Muslim personality. Jesus Christ is among us. And then they talk about some old news on there with the pastor out of Dallas. And the American, their features are the inevitable demise of the OPEC cartel, especially with oil hitting rock bottom. That's that petrodollar. And, they're saying the only thing that's holding the petrodollar there is Saudi Arabia. And without the petrodollar, using the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency will be gone. I think brick is the new up-and-coming thing. I think a lot of people are going to start turning that direction, folks, and it's something that we need to be concerned about, because I'm telling you, if you watch this show, losing our reserve dollar status will hurt the U.S. economy and, in turn, the global economy. The rest are just some old stories up there. They haven't really updated. Over the weekend, you don't get too many updates with a lot of these different news agencies. They're talking about the Ottawa shooting. Attack reveals evidence of an October drill. Jihadists inspected the UK Parliament as tourists. And I think there was a story out there where the tourist came through the United States into Canada, or they busted one that did. Another story on Intel Hub: Amnesty, U.S. human rights abuses on display in Ferguson. We did see some issues there. The one thing I don't like is that the UN is in there telling us about our human rights. I've had enough of the UN, which you're going to hear a story on lately, or I'm going to cover momentarily. Let's see. So let's go ahead and get to Ebola and the slippery slope here with martial law. They mentioned this doctor. She was quarantined, and now she wants to file suit saying, hey, I was being abused, and I don't know what transpired there. But here's the thing. Is she being selfish? Look, I get that she went over to Africa to help. I get that. That's a great thing she's doing. But there has to be an expectation that when you come back, and I've been saying this and I've been wanting this, that you're going to be quarantined. And you should be quarantined for up to 21 days, especially if you're out there working with Ebola patients. Now, should they know this ahead of time? Yes. But this lady should have enough knowledge to know that, hey, I'm coming back here. I don't want to infect anybody else. We can't trust these people to do an honor system type quarantine, because we've seen, as he referred to, the NBC people. One was a doctor. She was out there walking around. No issues. I think I'm going to go too if you sensed it. But what I wanted to focus on in terms of martial law is more of what's happening with our government troops. The army. They're being sent over to these Western African countries. And I don't know if you know this, and you should. The U.S. Army is not a humanitarian organization, people. It has for centuries, for long history, been known for their objective, which is to go out, to kill people, to win wars, to blow people up. That's what it does. It's the Army. It's an institutional mandate is for exercise, projection, and application of military force, not to go out there and humanely help with the Ebola crisis. And if you think otherwise, you're self-deluded, folks. You're self-deluded. And that is why the publicly given reason for sending thousands of U.S. Army troops to Liberia to fight Ebola can't be true. And I've been saying this all along. I'm wondering what their ulterior motive is. Is it China? Is it the China connection? Because China's over there. They've been trying to spread their influence there. And it's all about the oil. Are they simply just spouting some type of propaganda out there? When the U.S. Army, when have they ever concerned themselves about the sick? And it's funny. The only time I really think of the Army with sick is when I watch movies like Contagion. I think that was with Dustin Hoffman. And they set off a whole town and they were going to blow it up. But they're there for wars. I'm a Navy guy. I'm an ex-Navy guy. I wouldn't know what to do with this Ebola crisis. We're talking about the Army here, the same organization that killed millions of people in Vietnam in a series of wars. The U.S. Army does not alleviate human misery. It basically goes out there, and if you want to really analyze it, it causes it. And I'm not saying there's anything bad with it. I'm a veteran, like I said. That's what we're trained to do. We're trained to go out there. We're trained to go out and kill and win, and that's our mission. This whole Ebola outbreak itself may very likely be due to Ebola virus from the bio-warfare, which I covered on Friday. It was established in West Africa. It's a violation of international law, but we skirted around it. I covered all this on Friday. There's a great evil work with the Ebola outbreak, and the U.S. military is up to its eyeballs in it, folks. And it's a shame. And I'm not saying it's the common guy, the guy that's out there on the front line. No, it's the higher-ups, the generals, the politicals. The first 30-member Pentagon Ebola medical team is now training at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas. And similar units could be created. These are going to be fast reactionary teams that can come into the United States. Quarantine an area off, seal it off, take action. How will they do that? I mean, I'm skeptical of the story that the American military is putting out. Aren't you? You should be. Let's say someone in your family is reported to the military as having a fever, a bad cough, or they're bleeding from the nose. Signs of Ebola. Could be signs of other stuff too. Later how about me? Right now, I got a cold. My sinuses are going. I think it's cold. I don't know. My sinuses are going down. I feel great. But later that day, maybe the next day, 30 soldiers show up in biohazard suits here, show up at my house. They take me away, as well as the rest of the family for Ebola treatment or quarantine. Where will they take me for treatment? I told you the other day, I think that was Friday too, where we were discussing how several people that come in with Ebola-like diagnosis are disappearing. They don't know where they're going. Who knows? And what kind of treatment will the military provide? What time of treatment will they give civilians in these hospitals? I have to tell you, when I was in the military, I hated going to the doctor there because they were some of the most inept and incompetent people on my base. Now, I don't know if they were just in training or what, but they were some horrible doctors in there. They were commanders and stuff. They'd been in there for a while, but they used to scare the hell out of me. So who knows? Listen, the mere fact of a military involving itself in some kind of domestic health mission should raise numerous questions to all of us. Since when has the American military taken a high profile in public health policies? And should they? And surely, I think you would see the issue here. It's a fundamental issue. Every way for the governance of civil society, Ebola or not. And then there's that whole disappearing thing. Medical martial law, complete with disappearing people. And will they ever return? Where do they disappear to? Are they going to some secret military base for treatment? Will they ever be seen again? I'm asking these questions because it may have already begun. We're already hearing about stuff like that. Are they doing it to control the outbreak? Are they doing it to control people from getting freaked out? And unfortunately, folks, it looks like the plan is to use Ebola as a justification for some type of medical martial law here in our states, in our backyards. It's conspicuous, the involvement of the military. Isn't it? Or am I just being a conspiracy theorist? Think about it, folks. And again, I think of that Contagion movie. Is this what the future holds for us? Concentration camps, totalitarian or authoritarian. Societal control systems. Mind control, rigid spiritual suppression. And if they're already disappearing, or soon will be disappearing, will they be taken to places like some type of concentration camp, never to be seen and heard again? You got the peculiar case of the infected Ebola doctor in New York City. There's a suppressing of a bizarre case at a medical doctor in New York City who recently returned with Ebola from West Africa. No sooner did he finish treating patients with Ebola than he flew right back to the USA and spent almost a week around New York City, bowling, hanging out with friends, until, whoops, suddenly he manifested Ebola. And now he's medically isolated. In the meantime, he rode the subway, he went bowling, he exposed thousands of people to this virus. I got to tell you, folks, if I was a doctor and I'm over there helping Ebola victims with this highly contagious disease, and you know, it amazes me all the time because you always hear Obama saying, you won't get it if you're sitting next to someone on a boat. It's not that bad. It's not that contagious. Then why are they wearing hazmat suits? How is this possible that going from treating Ebola patients in West Africa in a hot zone and then just willingly flying back and joining the hustle and bustle in New York City, just walking around, hanging out without taking any quarantine, any medical safeguards? And then you got this idiot over there that says, I'm going to take action. I'm going to sue you because I don't feel I should be quarantined. What would really be crazy is if that lady comes down with Ebola. I mean, none of this is making sense unless you lived in a bizarro world. There's a very dark global national agenda clearly at play here, folks. And you have to wonder, are we going to need some kind of luck? I think we're going to need it. So think about this, folks. You know, and then I was reading this other story just about Ebola and how, see, it's funny. When I think of Ebola, I think a lot like a common cold. You sneeze. I'm not sure how it's spread, obviously. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. And I was reading, I think it was in the Beast this weekend, about blood and how it's basically, that's the weapon that's being used. And it's the war that's being waged on the body is through the blood, and how contaminated this bleeding gets, and how the virus causes massive bleeding, and how contagious the blood is. It was pretty interesting and eye-opening because I didn't realize that. Because a lot of times they say bodily fluids, it's in the sperm, but I guess when it gets in the blood and mixes within the blood, it just mutates even better and harsher, which is interesting. Very interesting. But I did want to cover the politics at play here, and that's with the White House coming down. I think I mentioned at the beginning of the show, where they're trying to come in and they're saying, hey, look, governors, New York, New Jersey, Chicago, you need to reverse your decision to quarantine these medical workers because you're going to de-incentivize them from going over and helping these Africans. So what's more important, folks? Is it more important to de-incentivize them so that possibly 1 out of 40 people won't go to Africa because, oh my God forbid, they have to come back and spend 21 days in quarantine? Or is it better to be safe and avoid putting millions of people at risk because you wanted this person wanted to go over and help Africa? I say help America. This is like the second time I've heard them come out where they didn't want to take certain action because it would hurt Africa. When is the Obama administration going to start worrying about Americans that they represent? Right now, my concern isn't about Africa. I don't care, look, we want to control the spread, but we want to control the spread so that it does not impact us here on the homeland. I remember I've been covering this story since back in March or whenever it was, and I've been covering it regularly. I'm not like major media that comes out at the 100 death mark does a lot of press, 1,000 death mark does a lot of press. Whenever something pops up, does a lot of press. I've been following it consistently. So now we got Ebola cases. There's now over 10,000 of them. Mali's president said he will not close his nation's border with Ghana, even though they're coming across the border with it. He's like one of these guys that's insistent on not shutting it. But 10,000 cases, and I'm looking at this map up here, and it basically breaks down the regions in Liberia, Ghana, Sierra Leone, of where it's spread to. But like Obama said, Americans, you shouldn't worry. He devoted a whole address to it. You shouldn't worry. The basic facts. It's very difficult to catch. Despite the fact that the health workers need to be fully garbed down. Americans can beat this deadly virus. We shouldn't be worried. Well, like I said, you got this first death over in Mali. And they still won't close their borders. It's like they're taking direction from Obama, who won't close our border with these Western countries. What are these people thinking? These leaders, these so-called leaders, they're not leaders. They're not leaders if they're doing this. And it's very concerning. Now there's some facts out there that I guess anyone with a brain could figure out, unless you're in government, because apparently they don't know all this stuff. Let me ask you this: if it's not so hazardous, why are they wearing these spacesuit garbs? Is it just so that they look cool? How can they continue to say there's no risk when people that are working with them in these garbs are even getting infected? Or the other thing, don't worry, nothing will happen here. There's almost zero risk of Ebola coming to New York City. Do you guys remember that? What happened? If Ebola is so hard to catch because you're managing it, why are people catching it? Why is it happening here? And then having this honor system of quarantine is just ridiculous. Obviously, the honor system isn't working. Obviously, certain people can't be trusted to just quarantine themselves and prevent the spread even further. Look, I don't pretend to know the answers. And again, this show, my goal is just to give you more information that you may not see on major media. I do a lot of research on the web. I see a lot of information. You take that. Hopefully it'll educate you on a new direction, possibly a new view of it. Then you can sit there and hopefully you'll get enough information that will inspire you to go out there and take action, make some kind of change, affect change with others. All right, folks, we're going to go to my sponsor, and we'll be right back.
Is your money manager giving you safety and security? Wouldn't you like to make your money work harder for you? Then you should consider joining philsgang.com, where thousands of individual investors successfully profited.
This year I'm up 60% on my portfolio. Following your system has been fantastic. I've been with you for about a month and a half now, and I'm already up 7%.
I've been in the business for a long time, and you're really one of the best I've ever heard.
Well, I just want to let you know what a great teacher you are.
For over a decade, philsgang.com's Phil Grandy and Donald Cogswell have been teaching, coaching, and investing right along with all Phil's Gang members.
I want to thank Donnie for market wrap. I bought 2,500 shares of AUI and sold it this morning at $820 profit.
Why not join thousands of satisfied Phil's Gang customers today? Go to philsgang.com, philsgang.com, or call 877-600-4264. That's 877-600-4264. Call today.
Okay, that was philsgang.com. Phil Grandy goes live at 9 and again at 3, Monday through Friday at philsgang.com. And you can also see him. He's a nationally syndicated radio show, so check the listings. I'm sure he's on a show somewhere within your city. So listen to philgrandy.com. He's covers social, economic issues, and financial issues that impact us. And he has this foolproof way to essentially go out and put money in the market and not take a beating like so many of us have lately, especially with how volatile it's been. So, one thing I did want to touch on too, and it's more along the immigration lines and the diseases that potential diseases that people bring in. As you know, I've been somebody sitting here saying that I firmly believe D68 came over with the onslaught of Central American illegals that were just coming through the state and our southern border. Continue to, but we've been distracted with Ebola, distracted with this Washington State shooter, distracted with other stories. And now, you look at this other one where Obama's planning on exposing us to potentially even more disease. And that's with an influx of 100,000 Haitians. He plans on bringing them in without any visa. And what Obama's plan on doing is facilitate the immigration of these 100,000 immigrations, or Haitian immigrations, to the U.S. No visa, And it's fought with medical risk, particularly the spread of disease endemic to Haiti. This Caribbean country is currently in the midst of outbreaks of cholera, chikungunya, HIV, very bad HIV and AIDS infection there. They're one of the worst outside of Africa. This whole chikungunya, though, it's especially worrisome since the aggressive mosquito was just discovered here in California recently. 2 weeks ago, the U.S. Citizen and Immigration Service, they announced plans to expedite programs to reunite Haitians with family members that are living in the United States. So they're bringing in 100,000 people under reunification. So the question that pops up, is there going to be some type of screening? And I've said this before, and I referred to Godfather, where on Ellis Island, Corleone came in, he had smallpox, he had to stay there. I think I even went over numbers last week in the show where I said 1.2 million people out of all the immigrants that flowed through there were stopped because they had some kind of illness. They were quarantined for X amount of time. And how come we're not doing that anymore? Will they start doing that with these 100,000 Haitians? Have some type of screening? Will work permits be granted automatically? And how will this affect the American worker? I can tell you it's going to be a negative impact on the American worker, as it usually is. Now, the CDC requires some type of screening, but will that apply here? They want the immigration of these Haitians to be expedited. So I don't know. Nearly 9,000 people have died from cholera over there. So should we be concerned? Like I said, 5% in the urban population, 3% in the rural area have HIV. And then there's the chikungunya. And it's almost like you got to sit here and wonder, what's Obama's objective? Is his objective to sit there and destroy us, to kill us off as a society? It's crazy. I've never seen someone that goes to such great lengths to do this to us. All right, folks, we'll be right back after a 30-second break. Get some of this great apparel from theroguegrant.com or the Uncensored Report or theviniscoop.com. We have hats, shirts, coffee mugs. They say educate, inspire, and change. Or for my Scoop fans, it'll say the Venice Scoop, Sarasota Scoop, etc. Help me with this operation so I can continue to get a fresh perspective on the news out to the masses. Thanks a lot, and have a great day. Just go to my website and click on the icon. All right, clothing at the Scoop. You can get it for uncensoredreport.com or any of my local Scoop pages, which are prevalent down in the Sarasota County area. But the Educate, Inspire, and Change, that's also on there. So check it out at theuncensoredreport.com. Now I want to talk a little bit about UN Day. Everybody knows my feelings about the UN. And I'm not a huge fan of them. And I don't think I'll be following the urging of the UN boss or Obama to celebrate UN Day, which, their celebration is give the UN more power. And what they're doing is they're citing real and imagined crises throughout the world. So you got this boss, this UN boss, Ban Ki-moon. We'll call him Moon. He celebrated the 69th anniversary of this dictator-dominated outfit. And he's claiming that they need it now more than ever. And Obama comes in, pro-UN. He issued a presidential proclamation celebrating UN Day, urging America's 50 governors and all its officials under the U.S. flag to observe this controversial day. He said, go out, have the appropriate ceremonies, activities. Let people know it's about UN Day. Let people know we should further empower them. Of course we should. I mean, after all, the UN's in there telling us that Detroit people are suffering because they're too lazy to get a job and pay their electric bill. They'd rather go buy beer. So they're saying we're in violation of human rights. Yeah, let's get more of that message sent out there. How much misery and tyranny has been inflicted on humanity from the UN? Let's look at that. Often by barbaric regimes. Many that continue to serve on the UN, on the Security Council, on the Human Rights Council. I think I covered that last week. UN peace troops raping and murdering civilians around the world. And what really concerns me now is a growing assault on U.S. sovereignty and liberty. Who do these guys think they are? They're increasingly out of control. And it's only going to get worse, especially when you have pro-UN puppets in the White House like Obama, everybody's best friend. It's time for us to withdraw from this, what was supposed to be a temporary agency. We need to defund all of its tentacles that are out there, folks, but it's not going to happen, is it? No. If Obama and Moon get their way, the UN will not only continue to perpetuate abuses with impunity and legitimize mass murdering regimes, it will get more power and more U.S. taxpayer funding to do it. So when are we going to stop this? Will the next president step up and do it? I heard this morning that Jeb Bush is, from a reliable source, that Jeb Bush is going to run. Will he be the next president? Will he do it? How about Clinton? Businesses don't create jobs. Will she do it? I think not. How about this guy Christie? What an idiot he is. In 45, just after the war, 51 nations came together and we created this United Nations to maintain international peace and security, encouraging global cooperation and universal respect of human rights. But it's become a major political piece. According to Obama, they enable the world's most immediate threats and critical long-term challenges. I don't know if I'm buying that. He says they eradicate poverty, but do they really? As overwhelming majority of poverty in the world today is caused directly by the oppression and bad policies that have been foisted on the humanity by UN member regimes. Think about it, folks. It's not a good thing. Obama didn't even bother to mention the UN's focus on recent years has been attacking the independence and liberty and constitutional system of America and our founding fathers. I mentioned Detroit. They were injecting themselves into Ferguson too, folks. They called on Obama to unconstitutionally overturn state laws of approved voters, like gun laws. I mentioned Detroit. Yeah, they don't want, they want us to give water to the people in Detroit for free. But I do have to ask, when did you have to start paying for water? When I was a kid, we never had bottled water. We didn't have to pay for it. Now you do. It's ridiculous. How about the UN? You have the world's most brutal communist regimes, and they're selected to lead the different UN agencies. It's ridiculous. Every aspect of human poverty behavior being managed by this UN world government. That Moon guy that runs it over there, he believes that the role of the UN includes everything from setting global labor standards and law enforcement to wealth redistribution and rationing emissions of what scientists call gas of life. The gas of life, CO2, exhaled by human beings. Also, an almost mind-blowing claim, Moon has also claimed that the UN has inspired the most successful anti-poverty campaign ever. But in reality, free markets, economic liberty, and voluntary charity are entirely responsible for reducing and eliminating poverty around the world, not the UN. Is this guy nuts? We need to get the UN out of the United States. There's legislation right now in Congress, H.R. 75, the American Sovereignty Restoration Act. It would precisely do that. But in the GOP-controlled House of Reps, could stop all taxpayer funding of the UN. Will we see passage of it? I doubt it. Withdrawing from the UN would save U.S. taxpayers vast sums of money and would deal a massive blow to the plans of those who seek to outfit and extinguish the liberty and independence of the United States, folks. So it's something we should seriously consider. Seriously consider. And we'll be right back. Hey everybody, this is Frankie, and I'm here today to introduce Longevity. It's a great nutritional supplement to anybody that's eating right or not eating right. I take supplements on a regular basis, and Longevity cannot be beat, especially at some of the great price points. So go to theroguerant.com or the uncensoredreport.com and click on shop. Go down to Longevity, click on it, and you'll be helping out the operations of the station so that we can continue to bring you a fresh perspective on alternative news. Longevity, check it out today. 1-800-PET-MEDS. Yes, get your pet essentials, your medicines, your collars, everything you need online. And guess what? You'll be supporting the operations of this great station, the Uncensored Report. So go to my website, click on the icon for 1-800-PET-MEDS, and help us continue the information war that's going on out there. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about finances. You know, I've always been concerned about the dollar and the pressure that's on it. And, you've had a lot of pressure with the BRIC countries, especially China and Russia as of late, where they got that new oil deal that was in, I think it was in yens. And things are changing. People want to take away the dollar reserve currency status from us because it's a tool that's being used to promote our power. And amid fast-growing pressure on the U.S. dollar status and the global reserve currency, authorities in the UK this week, they successfully issued sovereign bonds denominated in China's strictly controlled currency, the yen, or the renminbi, I think they call it. And this was the first such bond issue in the Western world, and the largest non-Chinese bond ever sold. While it may seem small, worth about 500 million US dollars, contrast that with 200 billion a year UK government is borrowing, and the implications it could have on the dollar, on the IMF system, and it could be profound in the long term. And this move by London is part of a broader trend that includes, among other elements, a coordinated effort by top establishment insiders from around the world to drastically reshape the IMF. Essentially, the planet is gradually shifting away from the dollar as the unchallenged global reserve and moving towards a globalized currency regime by the IMF and the global institutions that are out there. You know, China's economy recently passed the United States as one of the largest. And the U.S. dollar has already lost its monopoly position as the reserve currency in medium and international trade. It's something we've enjoyed since World War II. And initially, the privilege was it resulted from America's unchallenged global power and currency gold backing. But when Nixon severed the final link between the dollar and gold in 1971, the Federal Reserve currency maintained its dominance because oil was priced in dollars, hence the petrodollar. So what's going to happen when that petrodollar goes away? The only thing really holding it right now is Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia is using that influence to get us to go out and do stuff like fight ISIS. You know, with China, they originally seized power with key support from some globalist establishments that are still helping to orchestrate their rise, like George Soros, the leader of the New World Order. That guy's an idiot. You know, look, the dollar eventually will lose its status as the global reserve currency. The implications for America and the economy will be hard to overstate in the global economy. The gargantuan trade deficits fueled by government and central bank policies would come to a screeching halt as prices for imports would skyrocket. The outlandish borrowing and spending spree that DC is on would have to end abruptly. It won't be pretty, folks. So, just more food for thought. I did want to cover, too, the national debt, $27 trillion in 10 years. $27 trillion in 10 years. That's what the CBO is putting out. It says that here on this report, who wrote this? Bob Edelman. That the federal government revenues are expected to top $3 trillion this year for the first time in history, And they're saying that's thanks to income tax rising by 6%, payroll tax by 8%, and corporate income tax by 15%, which coincidentally, too, that corporate income tax is driving many businesses away. Why would I sit here in the United States and pay 45% when I can go over to, I don't know, X country, let's say Puerto Rico or whatever, and pay 20%? That's big money, big dollars. But for the ones that are staying here, you're getting that 15%. And those who are infatuated with big government are celebrating the event because it's a reflection of the improving economy that's resuscitated by government spending and stimulus programs. Entitlements. Small government advocates, on the other hand, are decrying this event by reminding those who will listen that the $3 trillion extracted from the economy, starving it of much-needed investment capital, will make the economy much weaker. But people just don't seem to get it. It's like everything else with entitlements. You know, these people that go out, they get the food stamps, they get the Obamacare, they get Medicaid. They just want their free stuff. They're blind to the implications it will have on the economy. It's like we don't care. Or I just don't understand it. How they're so disconnected from this. Government spending is projected to outpace government revenues. You can't survive as a country like this, folks. Think about it. With the economy struggling to get back to 3% annual growth, one can see this is a race the economy is not going to win. And I tell you what, the only thing you can do is start to pull back on all these entitlements. And then you're going to have an uprising because the people aren't going to buy into that. Foreign aid, stop giving out so much foreign aid. But then the foreign countries come and say, oh, God, you do that. The sources, the communists, the unwanted sources will infiltrate the government. You don't want that. According to Russell Sage Foundation, the typical household has been seeing its net worth decline by more than a third over the past 10 years, from 88,000 in 2003 to 56,000, folks. You know, if you assume the CBO assumptions are correct, federal debt burden on each private worker in the economy will rise easily, and it will exceed $300,000 by 2024. How will we pay it off? You're going to have to cut, right? You're going to have to cut somewhere. You know, I'm tired. You keep hearing, oh, the employment's up, the number's 5.5 or whatever it is. Forget the fact that wages are down. Forget the fact that inflation's up because they don't tell you the true inflation number. Increasingly, Americans are unable to sustain themselves with wages that are declining in purchasing power. They're not able to save money for retirement, folks. The latest report from Bankrate.com noted that 69% of the 18 to 29-year-olds haven't even saved one dime. It's hard. And how about the people that are getting ready to retire and they maybe have $11,000 in their bank? A third of all Americans have saved no money for retirement. Do you let them starve? Do you let them die in the streets? What do you do if you can't finance more entitlement programs? With finances in such disastrous shape, it is fair to ask again how the average American is going to be in the position to pay off their share of the national debt, which is burdened upon us when we're born, and we're given that number on our birth certificate. The answer is he's not going to, folks. The average American is not going to. How will the national debt be paid? It won't. That's the answer. It just will not. What will it take to end the explosion of government spending, annual deficit, and national debt? I don't know. Default? What will trigger a default? Which will only happen when the buyers of U.S. government debt finally wake up and realize that our AAA rating is more like A. It's a myth. It's a fraud. These are all concerns and issues that keep me awake at night, folks. Obviously, there's a lot more news out there to cover. I mean, if I look at my agenda, I only covered a few of the issues. I didn't even get to government waste, Soros wanting to go to war with Russia, corrupt political systems with donations, UN tyrants, so many issues here. Drones, CDC, and autism. I never have enough time. I could easily do a 2 to 3 hour show. But you need money for that. So, visit my site. I do have updates on all the news there. I do put my local show information on there. I think I even put my cooking show information on there and this National Arc show on here. You can also visit me on Facebook. If you go to the uncensoredreport.com, all my Facebook pages, which are several, I have my national ones and my international ones. I actually run one for the city of San Giovanni and Fiore in Italia. So check them out. And this has been Frankie. I will be back at 11 tomorrow. Everybody have a great day.